So when we're making a concept map, I have a few rules that I'd like for you to follow. The first is try to avoid being wordy. Okay, if you can summarize it in one word in a box and then a short linking phrase on the arrow, that's good. Okay, as you'll notice, you've got like one word here, maybe a couple words here. All right, and then on the arrows, there's some sort of link that connects them. Okay, that way you know it completes a sentence. All right, so when I assign a concept map, there'll be points for structural design, and that will be: do you have a simple concept in a box, or a circle, or a triangle, or whatever? And then do you have a linking phrase, a linking word, or something that connects the two concepts? And the arrow tells you which direction, because sometimes arrows can go back and forth, or they'll go the other way. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So let's give this a try. All right. Now, you may not know a whole lot of this. Hopefully you know a little bit of it. I'm going to go slow with it. We don't have that much time, but I want to make sure that we get this started, because this is going to be our first real anatomy unit. All right. So if we look at what this is saying, it's saying the body is divided or split into two major categories. Okay. So these two major categories are like basically the design for all vertebrates. Okay. So the first thing we have is what's called the dorsal cavity. Okay. And the dorsal cavity is kind of like your back. Okay. It's basically like the back part of your body. Okay. And then you have what's called the ventral cavity. So those are your two major cavities of your body. Now, as far as regions, if you look up here, okay, at the top here, you can also split the body into two major regions. And I'll explain a little bit later the difference between well, I'll just do it right now. A cavity is like a space. A region is an area on the body. Does that make sense? So cavities would be like the inside, and regions would be like the outside. Okay, where you would point to would be a region. So the two main regions are the axial and the appendicular. And I think I didn't make this box quite big enough, but appendicular. Sorry about that. I'm not exactly sure that's where you're supposed to hyphenate it, but that's where we're going to hyphenate it. Appendicular. Okay. An easy way to remember axial versus appendicular is your appendages, okay, like your arms and your legs. That is your appendicular, okay? So it's your arms, your legs, okay, and your pelvis. All right, those are the three parts of your appendicular. Your axial is basically what your appendicular hangs off of. So your axial skeleton is your head, your neck, your chest, and your trunk. So it's your midsection. All right. Okay, so let's start with dorsal. And if you want to, you can maybe, if you want to make these all green or however you want to do it, I'm going to use different colors just to kind of let you know that it's a different concept. If that's distracting, then you do it however you want. It's your map. You do you. Okay, so the dorsal is split into two major cavities. Okay, or two more cavities, I should say. There's two major cavities, the dorsal and ventral, and then we can split the dorsal into two more subcavities, if you want to call it that. Okay, the first is the cranial. And the second is the vertebral or vertebral. You can pronounce it either way. Now, your cranial, I mean, what do you guys call, what's the organ that's found in your cranial? What? Yeah, the brain. Okay. So inside here we have your brain. That's why it houses or holds. I just used house or houses. You could use cranial has the organ, the brain, if you wanted to. Okay. All right. It's also known as your head. And we'll get to these later. We'll do a completely different map or diagram of the 14 regions. Okay. But just realize we can divide the head into 14 different regions. That would be like spaces on the skull itself. Okay. Everything from like the occipital, which is the back of your head, to the frontal, which is the front of your head, all the way down into specific parts of like your cheek. It's called your buccal, which you guys should know that, and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So then the vertebral, can you guess what your vertebral cavity is also known as? Yeah, it's your spinal column. I've even heard it called spinal cavity. Just to kind of throw it out there, do you guys know what the 5 subregions are? Have any idea? Like, what's the top part of your spinal column called? It means neck. We just studied this on the mini-me. It also has another part of a female anatomy. It's like the neck of the uterus. Any ideas? The cervical. Okay, so that's like your top. Then what was your chest? What was the name for chest in the mini-me thing? That is one, but the one I was thinking of was the thorax or thoracic. And then your lower back is called your lumbar. Like maybe you have a lumbar on your seat in your car that you can maneuver. Okay. So there's the 3 parts of the spinal column, but then you also have 2 more parts. The sacrum and the coccyx or coccyx. I guess I misspelled that. The coccygeal. Why can't I spell coccyx today? Hold on. I'm having a total brain melt right now. Okay. So sorry about that. Coccyx. And it's also, you also hear it called coccygeal. Okay. And then on these lines, we could just put the 5 subregions R for each one of these. And that would meet our little construction point for making a good graph. Okay. And if we wanted to go a little bit further, we could do like AKA tailbone, that sort of thing. An easy way to remember the number of cervical, thoracic, and lumbar vertebrae is breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Okay. You eat breakfast at 7. You eat lunch at 12 and you eat dinner at 5. 7, 12, and 5. I don't know. Little trick. All right. So then the vertebral column, what does it protect? What's the whole point of your spinal column? What's it protecting? It's literally in the name. The spinal cord. The spinal cord. Okay. All right. So then if we go over to the ventral, it's divided into, and this is your front, because like right now I'm venting out of my mouth. Okay. So the front part of your body, from your face all the way down to your groin, not including your legs, because that's a regional area and you don't have cavities in your leg, right? There's no, besides muscles and bones, there's no other organs in your appendages. Okay. So the cavities or the holes can be split into your chest, which is your thoracic, and the abdomino pelvic cavity. Now I put on here, I forgot to put it on the copy that I made for you guys, but I had it on my key that I made this morning. It's divided by this thing called your diaphragm, which we'll talk about later. It's basically what separates the two cavities of the ventral cavity. What do you call your thoracic? What do you call this right here? You know, somebody has blank pain, chest. Yep. So it's also known as your chest. The thoracic can be split into 3 subcavities. Okay. And they kind of have special names, again, scientific names. The lungs, which you guys should remember from your mini-me, is called the pleural. And then you can probably guess, if I pull this up, I don't know, that's the heart, right? Why else would I draw it looking like a heart? So then your heart and the area that surrounds the heart, because peri means around, right? Like perimeter, pericardial. Pericardial. And then the area right above your heart, okay, which technically doesn't house by itself, it houses parts of organs. So like the top part of your heart, arteries, and like the lower part of your throat, it's called the mediastinum. And we'll talk about it more. It's really just a place. It's like what you might call your like right below your voice box, okay, where you might get a tracheotomy. All right, that's that area. Okay, so then the abdominal pelvic region, you can probably guess what the 2 subcategories are there. You have the abdomen, or the abdominal, and you have the pelvic. Okay, so the abdominal cavity is it houses all your digestive organs. I'm not going to write down all of them, but this is pretty much most of them. Okay, so you have your kidneys, you have your stomach. This is in no particular order. You have your liver, you have your spleen, and then you have your small and large intestines. Now, I left some out. I mean, like the gallbladder and the pancreas and things like that. Okay, but I just gave you 5 examples. Okay, and then Your pelvic region houses your bladder. The lower part of your colon and your rectum. And then the internal, like your ovaries, internal organs of reproduction. The reproductive organs. Okay, so that took us right at 15 minutes or so, a little over 15 minutes to complete what would probably equal, I don't know, 5 pages of notes probably. Now, did we define all these? No, but at least you have, I like using AKAs. These are things that you already know, okay? These are things that you can reference and you're like, I know what this is. I just going to put a special name to it, all right? So get used to doing concept maps. If you haven't done them before, there's different ways you can do them. But again, the rules, you got to have one main concept per box or so, linking arrows with linking phrases or words, okay?